Hello and welcome back to another episode of our skin education series. Tonight we are going to be talking all about sun tanning and whether it is safe. I've popped the title as "Is it safe to tan in summer?" but I really would like to address this as an all year thing. And just a little disclaimer, I am a corneotherapist, so I work with the skin in an aesthetic way. So I help, that means I help people with acne, sensitive type skins like rosacea, things like of this nature, but I am not a dermatologist. So please, this is more of a discussion in regards to the topic of whether it is safe to tan, and I'm really just wanting to go into detail about the evidence I can find, and definitely do seek the help of a dermatologist if you need more advice in terms of identifying skin cancers, identifying the risks and understanding everything around that. So that is just my disclaimer, and I really wanted to open up the conversation in regards to this topic so you can make a better and more informed decision when it comes to your skin. Now, hello Emily, and hello to whoever else is there. Would you just quickly be able to pop in the comments and let me know if you can hear me? I've kind of changed my little setup and the phone's quite far away, so I don't know if you can hear me well. In the meantime, beautiful, cool. We're good on this end, so if someone can let me know, that would be super helpful. But essentially, in the last two episodes that I ran, I spoke a little bit about the damage that your skin will undertake when exposed to UV radiation. And yes, Emily says she can hear me. Fantastic. Thank you for that. So in the last episodes, I spoke about the UV radiation that will happen. It will inevitably happen whenever, hello Grace, will happen whenever you're exposed to the sun. And I'm not just talking, the sun as in the sun is out on a nice sunny day. It's actually out. Those UV rays are coming down on days when it's cloudy. Pretty much whenever there is daylight, you are being affected by UV radiation. And this is really where I wanted to lift off, because I spoke about sunscreen and I spoke about my personal opinion and my tips around sunscreen, and it's really, really simple. Just apply it every single day to all the areas that are affected, but I wanted to go deeper. So let's discuss this. Oh, goodness, it's a big topic. So originally, I really wanted to talk about this because there are two sides of the arguments when it comes to whether it's safe to tan or whether it isn't. And there are so many different opinions. You've got on one side of the spectrum, you've got the medical side where dermatologists and doctors and researchers, they're really looking at the evidence, the scientific evidence, and they're weighting their opinions on all the cases of skin cancer, and not just skin cancers, but the documented effects of UVA and UVB damage. And they're really speculating on, well, what's happening to the skin cells, what's happening to the body, and the potential effects that creates. So that's one end of the spectrum. Then you've got on the other side of the spectrum, which I have looked into, but I find it harder to get good conclusive evidence. And this is where it's so tricky. But on the other end of the spectrum, we have, it's more of a personal opinion, and it's based on, it's hard to say. I suppose there's anecdotal evidence and mainly personal opinion. So I'm talking blogs, natural doctors or natural practitioners within this realm. Someone speeding down the road. So it's hard to say who really is the spokesperson for this end of it, but it's more of the natural health opinion. And on this end of the spectrum, you've got your anti-sunscreen people. You've got the type of people and opinions that essentially they're saying, look, you build up a tan, you need the sun to create health in your body. And there are so many other topics around this. I've heard of the sun curing diseases, all kinds of things. So there's a lot on this end of the spectrum and there's a lot on this end. And by bringing these up, I'm not saying that, you know, the natural health opinion is wrong or incorrect, but I do find it hard to find good evidence around this. So that's just something to mention really quickly. So I guess my whole thing about this video is to really consider both sides of the argument and really just creating a review of the evidence and giving you a bit of food for thought. So I decided to dig into some articles and look at the evidence that I could find. And to be quite, hello Lisa, and to be quite honest, when you first look and you actually Google the term, is it safe to tan, and you will be like flooded with the amount of information in regards delivered by not only dermatologists but health boards and government websites, and then also there's a whole heap of scholarly articles, some which I will quote little bits and pieces of, but you'll find an overwhelming amount of evidence where they're saying things like there is no way that a suntan is safe, you know, no tan is safe, the only safe tan is essentially a fake tan. And the reasons for this is because whenever you are being exposed to either UVA or UVB, UVA is the type of sun rays that hit your skin and you don't burn, but it essentially creates free radicals essentially in the skin, and what that does is these free radicals then join onto the molecules in your skin and it basically damages the DNA. That's a very simple way of putting it, but that's essentially what happens. So it damages the DNA of your cells. And the UVB it also creates DNA damage, but it also creates a burn and inflammation and erythema to the skin. And both are not good or ideal, and they will accelerate skin aging and they will put you at risk for skin cancers. And they will create hyperproliferation of the epidermis as well, so that thickening of the stratum corneum. That's the uppermost layer. So I kind of just lost my little train of thought there, guys. But essentially, that's the information you'll see when you first look up this. And I wanted to read to you an article from 2009, just kind of summarizing what I'm just saying now. So sunlight and indoor UV induced tanning is a common behavior. So they're talking about outdoor tanning and indoor sun tanning in sun tanning beds. I'm sure you all know by now that solariums are deemed unsafe and they're pretty illegal here in Australia. Hello Bianca. So sunlight and indoor tanning, UV induced tanning, is a common behavior, especially among adolescents, young adults and individuals with lighter skin. Excessive sun exposure is associated with several health risks, including the acceleration of skin aging, which I just mentioned, the promotion of skin cancers such as basal cell carcinomas, squamous cell carcinomas and melanomas, which we'll touch on. Malignant melanoma, I should say. And however, several health benefits of UV exposure include vitamin D production and improved mood. And this is really where I'm wanting to talk the most on this talk. So that really does summarize the evidence. That's an article from 2009 where there were just kind of, it was a systematic review of the evidence on sun tanning. So as you can see, you've got a couple of big risks. You've got oh, thank you, Bianca. I am well and great. I'm so glad you're excited for this. I think it's a very good topic to be talking about as we get into summer, because, you know, we all love a tan. We all love to feel healthy and glowy, because, you know, there is a bit of talk on, you know, a healthy tan being a sign of good health, but it really isn't. It actually is. It's a sign that your skin cells have been damaged. It's radiation. It's radiation damage, essentially. So, really important topic. But essentially, you've got your downsides, which are the acceleration of skin aging, which is binding to those collagen cells through the free radicals and essentially damaging the skin, and, you know, reducing elastin and collagen, which is what keeps you nice and young, and with that damaging quicker, your skin will sag, create fine lines. You also get pigmentation as well. And the risk of skin cancers such as the basal cell, squamous cell, and malignant melanoma. Now, I wanted to actually bring up some stats about this because this is my livelihood. Like, I love the skin, but I needed to be reminded of this. And Bianca says, is gradual tanner okay? Because I use this sometimes as a moisturizer. I'm going to touch on that at the end, Bianca, so stay tuned. And I have a really interesting fact that I found while researching this on gradual tanners, so stay tuned for that. But I needed to be reminded about the skin cancer stats, and you know, it is scary when I'm going to read some of these out, and I'm not trying to put fear into you, but these are stats that are have been listed on the Cancer Council, and we've got those 3 types of carcinomas, and the most problematic being the malignant melanomas. So here we go. Basal cell and squamous cell carcinomas are both non-melanoma skin cancers, and generally they do come up on the skin like little crusty areas. They do have their own specific ways they present, and at the end of this broadcast, actually, what I'm going to do is pop in the comments the link to download a really great PDF where you can actually, it shows you what the different types of skin cancers look like. Hello, Jackie. And let's go back to the stats. So approximately 2 in 3 Australians will be diagnosed with skin cancer by the time they are 70. 2 in 3 before 70. That's full on. That's like everybody. It's 2/3. Non-melanoma skin cancer is more common in men, with almost double the incidence compared to women. Hello. Love the love hearts. So I'm just going to touch on that, and I do believe that is due to a lot of reasons, mainly being that men do generally work in more outside works like construction and road works and all of that, and they probably, I'm guessing they are less likely to implement a skincare regime with sunscreen. My partner is, and hello Daniel, if you're watching, I did see your face pop up. He is, he's a good sport and he will use it if I remind him, but he does forget, and I know a lot of men do forget, or at least don't put it as a high priority, even if they're in the sun all day. So I think that's the biggest reason men just aren't so concerned. And what is Lisa saying? I'll need to finish watching this on the replay. Of course, Lisa, I look forward to it. And hello, Jasmine. So moving on, essentially men are affected more so, almost double than what females are with the non-melanoma skin cancers. So excluding non-melanoma skin cancer, so we're only talking about we're only talking about the melanomas now. Every year in Australia, skin cancers account for around 80% of all newly diagnosed skin cancers. So let me repeat that. Skin cancers account for almost 80% of newly diagnosed cancers. That's huge. The majority of skin cancers are caused by exposure to the sun, and GPs have over 1 million patient consultations per year for skin cancer. The incidence of skin cancer is one of the highest in the world, 2 to 3 times the rates in Canada, US, and the UK. And this one is the scary one. In 2016, 1,960 people died from skin cancer in Australia, 1,281 from melanoma, and 679 from non-melanoma cancers. So that's a considerable amount of people who are being affected by the melanoma. Hello, Danielle. So that's a considerable amount of people that are being diagnosed with skin cancer every single year. And the stats are always being updated, so please, I do recommend you go check them out. I'm just looking at the Cancer Council right now. But it's staggering. And when you look at not the etiology, but the outcomes for patients with melanoma, it's a very aggressive cancer. It really is, and it can spread to other parts of the body. So it is just worth noting that so many of us are affected by this, and the biggest way to avoid it is to simply cover up and use a sunscreen. And hello, Renee. And this is where we're going to get into more of a discussion on whether the risks outweigh the benefits. And like I mentioned, I am going to pop into the description at the end of this broadcast to show you where a PDF download is, so you can look at the moles and the marks on your body, so you can realize whether there is something worth speaking to a dermatologist about. But the general recommendation for new moles, it's basically that Jasmine's just said, wowza, thanks for reminding me, I needed this. I'm so glad, because I needed this as well. Sometimes we can just forget how serious the risk is. Essentially, what was I just saying? Yes, moles. Basically, when there's a new mole on your body and it hasn't disappeared within, say 6 weeks, this is the recommendation I found from a video on YouTube earlier today. This is an official statistic, recommendation. Seek your dermatologist for this. I mentioned that at the beginning. But essentially, if something hasn't disappeared within 6 weeks and it's new, and you should definitely go speak to a dermatologist about it. The recommendation is to actually get these checked every single year and to document over your whole body where all of these moles are. Now, I can bet you a majority of us aren't doing this. For example, I have recently just gotten one on my lip, and I've got a new one on my breast, and there's a few little bits and pieces there. They look like freckles, but the thing is, I can't diagnose this. Maybe they're not freckles. It is hard to tell, although the skin cancers generally do look more like irregular shaped. But like I said, check the PDF for that. It's just something to think about and realize that this is the recommendations. And if you really want to be on top of it and making sure that you're doing the best thing to look after your health, because this is what it comes down to, guys, is to actually get these checks. Danielle says, hey Kathleen, great topic, such an important discussion, if not a little controversial. Absolutely, thank you Danielle, it is controversial to say the least. So let's get into the looking at the pros and the cons. I know that one of the common arguments on the other side of the spectrum is that when you build up a tan, it's actually there to protect you further, to provide protection from the sun and kind of like ups your tolerance. But the thing is, I found a quote on this that basically says, a tan will offer limited protection from sunburn, usually equivalent to an SPF 3, depending on your skin type, and it does not protect from DNA damage, which can lead to skin cancer. So that kind of just busts that little idea in, right down the middle. It's very clear cut, and essentially, yeah, it'll protect you a little bit. That's what the melanin in your skin is doing. It sends it up to the top of your epidermis, your stratum corneum, and the other layers, and it sends it up to protect you from further damage. But the thing is, hey Kirsty, the thing is that small amount of SPF protection is only a 3, and the DNA damage is still happening, so you're still at risk of skin cancer. So how do we get past the risk of skin cancers? Well, when you look at the evidence, I don't see if there's a way around this, because you really need to be covering up and getting protection from your clothing, from your surroundings, with sunscreen. But other than those things that I've just listed, there's no kind of anti-skin cancer pharmaceutical or supplement. There's no way around it unless you just don't go out into the sun. But others on the other end of that spectrum of the argument are really saying that you should get out into the sun, you should suntan, and you should build up that healthy tan. But I just don't find an argument that's convincing enough for me to be able to want to go and get a suntan. The risks really are too high in my opinion. Hello, Amy. So that is my personal opinion on this, and I want to go straight back to the start when we were talking about the several health benefits of UV exposure, including vitamin D and improved mood. And I'm not here to say that that's not true. I think it's absolutely true. Whenever you go out into the sun and you get a little bit of sunlight and you're outside, we feel so much better. I know when I skip the sun and I don't get outside, I feel terrible and icky, and we have all related to this. And then the other benefit is actually vitamin D synthesis, because our skin synthesizes vitamin D and we use it within our body. And what I found really interesting, just by having a quick Google, I don't have any official stats for this, but the majority of people in Australia and even in the UK, high incidences in the UK, are deficient in vitamin D anyways, whether they're getting sun or not. I do believe, and I've heard this from a naturopath before, again, don't have the official quote for this, but there's so many little things that come into play when it comes to vitamin D synthesis. So you could be getting all the sun, but your body's not synthesizing it. I'm sure there's some sort of other nutrient that is involved in that. But when I heard that, I just thought, oh, that's interesting. So as a general recommendation for myself, speak to your general practitioner about this. I take a vitamin D supplement because I regularly get blood checks and on about the yearly basis, and I'm always deficient in vitamin D, and I always go, that's a reminder, I've got to start taking my vitamin D supplements again. I'm not awfully consistent with it, but it is an essential nutrient vitamin essentially for your body. So don't think of it as unimportant. Put it as a high priority. Speak to your doctor, get checked, see where your levels are at. So when you look at the benefits, I personally haven't found a convincing enough argument. I'm really interested to learn more about what you are thinking if you are watching this broadcast. Is there some sort of benefit that you've heard about? I've heard all sorts on this, and I just don't believe it as of yet, especially when we realize that the suntan that we build up, that tolerance is only about an SPF 3, and we're going to get DNA damage still. And Bianca, I promised I would talk to you about the interesting fact on suntanning lotions. And I thought this was so interesting, but it's essentially within the 24 hours after applying a suntanning lotion, usually with the active compound, and I have to get the ingredient up to say it properly, it's DHA is what it's short for, but it's dihydroxyacetone. I hope that's right. It's the active ingredient that causes the darkening of the skin cells, essentially. It's a temporary thing. I use DHA in the Dermavisual Self Tanner, and I love it because it's safe for the face, it's non-drying, it's got great ingredients, and it actually makes a really beautiful tan. But essentially that 24 hours after applying DHA to the skin, you are actually increasing you're basically more vulnerable to sun damage and burning in the skin. I was so amazed to read that. I was really blown away. So yeah, it makes you more sensitive to the sun. So you actually do have to take a little bit more care when you do have a fake tan on, essentially, and going out into the sun. So that's a little bit of interesting information. So you're probably thinking, God, what a buzzkill. How can I get that beautiful tan? And look, honestly, I don't know how to go about this. Obviously a fake tan is always desirable, but it's something that you have to maintain. And if you are looking for a great tanner, please let me know. I have a recommendation. Her name is Rachel, and she owns Deluxe Beauty Co. She is amazing. I love her tans. She's very experienced in it, and she's based in just off South Road. But essentially, other than that, you could, it's definitely not safe to go to suntanning beds. You could, you will naturally get darker as summer goes by, and you will just from that, excuse me, excuse me, you will build up a tan over summer. And you know, you don't want to be super strict on this and be like, oh my god, something is, you know, my skin's being touched by the sun, and being completely strict and crazy about this. You can't avoid it, and you don't want to take that really full-on approach, but I think it's something worth thinking about from two aspects. First of all, that aesthetic side. You know, you don't want your skin to have accelerated aging or hyperproliferation of the epidermis, making it thick and skin thickening. But you also don't want to run the risk of skin cancers, especially when 2 in 3 Australians are diagnosed with either the squamous cell, basal cell, and the melanoma in a given year. So, oh gosh, my approach, like I mentioned last week, was just whenever I leave the house, I put on a 15 or a 30 on all the areas on my body, essentially my hands, a bit of my arms, my neck, my ears, my face. And I go out there and I do my thing, and I don't get burnt, I don't suntan, and I follow the rules of putting on sunscreen. It's really that simple. I do get tanned in summer. I have a Fitzpatrick type 2/3. It's hard to say, probably a 3, which means I can be in the sun a little bit longer than most people. But you know, if you are really pale, like really fair, as in you have freckles and red hair, or you're the next one up and maybe you have blonde hair, then you have to avoid the sun. You're not going to even build up a tolerance. You know, that tiny little bit of SPF 3, you're not even going to build that up. So how do you get the health benefits of the sun? Well, go out there in limited times, you know, go out on your lunch break, have a little 5 minutes, go out in the afternoon when the sun rays are lower and the UV ratings are a bit lower. They say between about 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. is when it's at its most harshest. So go really early hours of the morning, or go in the afternoon. Go out for 5 minutes here and there, and always wear a sunscreen and just don't get burnt. That is the best advice I can give, based on all the evidence in front of me. If you do have an argument for the other side of the spectrum, so I'm talking the natural health movement, please let me know. I'm interested to hear your opinion, and if it is, you know, a really valid opinion, I'm pretty open to these things. Provide me with some evidence and I'll make my decision for my health. But for now, I will definitely be covering up. I don't want to get a skin cancer. I don't want to run that risk in my life, and I also don't want to have accelerated aging. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and please make sure this is a reminder to you about the risks of sun cancer, and definitely do check out the PDF down below. Hey Bianca, thank you so much. I'm glad it was helpful. Check out the PDF that I'm going to pop up in just a moment, and look at your moles on your body. Start taking a record and speak to somebody about it, whether it's just your doctor or you go get a dermatologist recommendation. There are certain skin types that are more vulnerable to skin cancers than others. However, all Fitzpatrick skin types, as in really light to really dark, are still going to get DNA damaged regardless. So speak to your dermatologist, speak to your doctor, get the moles checked out, because, you know, like I said last week, I know somebody from my school who did get a skin cancer, and you know, just when you know somebody that's been affected and when you're being told these things, it's like, well, hang on, you know, people our age, you know, I'm 27 now, people my age are getting them already. So this particular individual was using sun tanning beds, I believe, but still, you know, no one's safe. You can't just live in a fairyland and pretend it's not going to happen. I'm here to give you the harsh truth, unfortunately. So I hope you found this really helpful and it hasn't scared you from the sun completely. Next week, I'm actually going to be talking all about pigmentation, and pigmentation is one of the effects from the sun. It's basically what we're talking about, like a tan, that's pigment in your skin, but I want to be talking about pigmentation disorders, so melasma, pigmentation spots, I'm going to be talking about chlasma as well, which is like the mask of pregnancy, they call it, so it comes up during pregnancy, and really just touching on this topic. I then have, let me just double check to confirm, I also have separate, yeah, that's right, I have a separate one on treating pigmentation with CIT and active ingredients, and also one diving deep into melasma and chlasma. So stay tuned for those over the coming months. And then as November concludes, I'm really excited because I'm going to be talking about another very controversial topic, and that topic is, will going vegan fix your skin or cure your acne? Now, I really wanted to touch on this and bring up a conversation because there's so many things going out there about veganism and acne, and I really wanted to divulge into that. But that's the 3rd of December, so just giving you a little sneak peek into the future. Whew. I don't think I breathed throughout these talks. I hope you enjoyed listening to my talk, and I really look forward to seeing you all again soon. Have a wonderful night and leave your comments below. Bye.